The world has been gripped by this pandemic known as COVID-19. And that's actually the name of the disease. It's not the name of the virus. The virus name is actually SARS-CoV-2 because it's very similar to SARS. And it is, as of the time of this recording, shut down the world. It's 182,725 people infected officially. And we'll never know the actual number. It's past the point of governments lying. It's the fact that so many people have it. There's just no way of knowing. There's not enough tests in the world. Every expert has guesstimated that 70% of the world will have this. Will they die? Who knows? Probably not. I'm going to be approaching it from a very, very different avenue than what some people may talk about this virus. Is because human beings, we have this myopic way of looking at anything, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. If it's a virus, if it's a depression, if it's a alien invasion or an asteroid strike, we tend to focus on that, right? That which is biggest, that which makes the most noise. Is that what is what we pay attention to the most? And in the very first video I ever did, I give a little brief history about the fact that I was in the military. A lot of people don't know what I did in the military, and it's not like it's a big secret. It was pretty boring until now. See, I was a nuclear, biological, and chemical operations specialist, and specifically, I was Lima 5, which meant that I only knew how to drive, knew how to command, but I knew how to operate all facilities of the NBCRS Recon Fox vehicle. It is a $22 million vehicle that is amphibious. It is chemical proof, biological proof, and nuclear proof to an extent. And my job was to learn about viruses, learn about contaminants such as the different types of Agent Orange and mustard gas, learn about the coronavirus, learn about Ebola, learn about this, and how enemies could be using it. In 2005, and I want you to listen to me, and I want you to listen to this very carefully. This is very important. In 2005, I was in South Korea. I wasn't an NCO yet. I was still private. We had what is called the War Eagle exercises in South Korea. It's where every year America and South Korea puts on military drills, basically just to show up North Korea. That's what it's done for. It's to show strength in the area, to let North Korea know that they're prepared. This year it was a multinational war exercise. We had participants from 16 different countries. And because I was chemical, I was a part of a pandemic simulation in 2005, and this was in South Korea. It was on Camp Casey, which is right outside of the town known as Dongdacheon. And of course, if you go to Camp Hovey in the back, you have Tokuri, but they bulldozed that place to the ground. Anyway, I digress. 2005, this pandemic simulation that we were a part of, it was me and one of my NCOs. It was a couple of Korean soldiers. We had a couple of people from Belgium, a couple of people from France, a couple of people from Germany, and I believe there were Japanese soldiers there, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. We were sat down and we were briefed, and the whole setup of the scenario is that a new coronavirus, and the reason why we chose coronavirus is because SARS had just ended, the SARS outbreak. SARS outbreak, if you don't know, was from 2002 to 2003, around there, and so we chose that, and SARS was also a novel coronavirus. So we chose that as the simulation, or whoever, not we, they, whoever wrote the simulation. And it was a novel zoonotic coronavirus that had broken out across the world. And believe it or not, they chose China because the original SARS came from China. And they said that the reason that the pandemic could happen. See, when we're coming into the scenario, the governments have already pretty much broken down. Everything's in lockdown. Disorder has caused martial law to be called, and that's why we're there. But why we're specifically there is we're trying to figure out how to contain this novel virus. And the instructors gave us the two definite reasons for why this pandemic scenario was created. It's because it's based off of what will most likely happen in the event of anything, pandemic, war. That's what you have to understand. There are very, 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 very smart people, much smarter than you and much smarter than I, who sit in a room and think based off of watching people, reading people, watching, paying attention to what they do, building all these algorithms that are so complicated. They can determine the most likely outcome for any scenario. Not to the letter, but they get it right more often than not. And so when I tell you that we had a simulation, what I'm really saying is that people smarter than you and I put their heads together and said that if a pandemic was to break out, this is the most likely reason. And I'm going to give those two reasons for you, and they're going to sound very familiar. The reason, number one, was civilian complacency. That is to say, the average population didn't give a shit. They didn't take it serious. They said things like, it's just the flu, bro. They started quoting that, well, X people die from X disease every year, but this coronavirus, they only have this amount of people die. And then it's, fear and manipulation, the governments are just trying to control you. And that might be true. And then I've heard things about 5G. It's not a virus, it's 5G. And here's the thing, when I read that and I see that, and I look at these people, and then I click on their profiles, and I look at their jobs, most of them don't have any. And the ones that do, it's like stalker at Walmart. And so I start to think, well, from what knowledge do you say that? When you say something, you have to be able to back it up. You can't just provide a link and say, well, this is where I read it. They know better than me. They said it. It's always, when we're trying to prove our point, well, they said it, or this person who has more knowledge than me says it. But if you don't understand it, if you don't understand the knowledge, then you're just regurgitating something that you can't defend because you don't understand it. And I have a ton of experience with viruses, with infection protocols, with how pandemics break out. And I've gone online and I tried to warn people, and I was labeled a fearmonger for it. Fearmonger. And all I literally did was post the daily numbers of when they were increasing. Look, January 21st, I believe there were 700 cases, give or take. January 21st, around 700 cases. We've come a long way. So civilian complacency, that was reason number one. Reason number two, and it's funny because I'll never forget these reasons, never forget them, word for word. It was the government's failure to react in time to contain the virus properly, which is exactly what every government did. China, far too late. They let 5 million people escape before they locked down Wuhan. 5 million people. And when I heard that, I said, well, there goes the pandemic. There it is. That's how it'll start. And that's exactly how it started. Those 5 million people got out. Doesn't matter if only 1% of them was sick. We have what we have today, the first of its kind in our generation, and the generation before us, and the generation before them. No one is alive today who experienced Spanish flu that could tell you. A couple of years ago, maybe. I think the last survivor of it died a few years ago. But no one can actually tell you how bad it was. We can only read about it. And if we got hit with the Spanish flu today, it would wipe out humanity because of how we travel, how we congregate. And the thing is that I have endured a lot of, I'm going to say online bullying for the sake of so that you know what I'm talking about. Because I don't believe in online bullying. I think if you allow someone to bully you online, you've forgotten how to block people, and you've forgotten it's way more psychological than that. But people have attacked me because I've been trying to warn people and tell people, hey, look, this is serious. Take this serious. This is serious. Take this serious. And I got fearmonger, fearmonger, fearmonger. Those people are silent today. They're silent. And here's the thing, I'm not happy that I'm right. That's the thing about doom and gloomers, because I've been called that. Definitely not a doom and gloomer, but it's the thing about doom and gloomers. Actual doom and gloomers secretly don't want to be right. And that's the secret. When someone thinks that the world is going to end, and they're prepping for it, they're not just like spreading fear, they're legit believing it. They want to be wrong, because being right means terrible things. You don't want to be right when it comes to stuff like this. And this coronavirus is not the only thing going on in this world. I'm going to introduce to you a concept, and it's what the video would probably be called. It's bread and circus, and you need to understand what bread and circus means. I need you to zoom out for just a moment of the micro. The micro is the virus, right? We're focusing on that because it's the biggest thing. It's a pandemic. Absolutely, it should be focused on. But when you zoom out to the macro, how much is going on top of this that compounds it, that will make being a human, living in society, very hard over the next couple of years. And I'm going to tell you why. It's just simple math. You can look all of this up. I don't care. Believe me or not. That's what I learned online when I was taking this flack for people, is that you cannot save everybody. You can't. And you can't feel bad about that. You can try. And then if you do not succeed, you move on. You save who you can. See, on top of the virus, we have what's going on is what can only be described as a global food shortage. We've been having this wacky weather where fields of crops that used to be really good have been flooded. It's been cold. It's been wet. And we've lost a lot of crops this year for this year. We lost them last year. We lost potatoes. We lost sugar beets. We lost canola. We lost corn. We lost all of these staples. And I'm talking about we lost a significant amount. And all of this is going to add up in a second, and it's going to add up very quickly when you'll understand what I'm talking about, bread and circus. On top of the coronavirus and on top of food shortages, we have obviously an economic collapse, a global economic collapse happening right now. I've seen videos and comments of people saying that, they've seen markets, crash and fall. Well, we only have a couple of dates that matter. And unless you were around on Black Monday in 1987, or unless you're around the stock market crash in 1929, you've never seen stocks fall like this, because we've broken records 3 times in 2 weeks. And because we're so interconnected as a global economy, chain supply disruptions, the things that you buy at Walmart, the shelves being bare, the panic buying, all that stuff is connected. It's not just that people are panic buying. It's also that there's not supplies. All of these toilet paper and supplies that Walmart and stuff is pulling out, they're pulling out of what they have stored up in their warehouses. It's not stuff that's being flown in from China, getting in their warehouse, getting shipped out, and they get sent. They're out. And that goes the same with a lot of food, a lot of different things that we get from China, especially Walmart. Walmart will be the most impacted because their shelves is predominantly made in China items. 90% of what Walmart sells is made in China. On top of that, we have locusts. That's another story that no one knows about. And this started 2 years ago in the desert of Saudi Arabia, in the middle of nowhere, with all this wacky weather again that we have, and these grasshoppers that become locusts when it's really wet and moist and it rains a lot. They're able to breed exponentially. Like, it just gets out of hand quickly. And because of all the civil wars going on in Yemen and Saudi Arabia and with Syria and Turkey and with all of these Middle Eastern countries just embattled, they usually kill these locusts when they start to creep up. Well, they didn't do this in 2018. It was allowed to spread further. They didn't do it in 2019. It was allowed to spread further. At a certain point 3 weeks ago, as far as they could tell, the number of locusts had grown to 360 billion. And they were all up the coast. I'm talking about from the top to the bottom of Africa, East Africa. They stretched from South Africa all the way to Pakistan. That's how big this thing is. And these experts said that if this is not contained, if this is not, these locusts are not destroyed, they will increase by 500-fold in 2 weeks. Well, that was 3 weeks ago. And guess what the governments of the world did not do? They did not stop it. So now we have 18 trillion, because 360 billion times 500 is 18 trillion. It's a guesstimate. It could be more. And you see, the problem is that what locusts do is consume. Far better, far more efficient than a human could ever consume. They eat their body weight. Each grasshopper will eat its body weight per day. They can travel 90 to 100 miles a day. They can consume millions and millions and millions of pounds of food, wheat, corn, every single day. They're going into China now. They're going to wipe out what's left of China, right? All of this food that's getting wiped out leads to an overarching theme of food shortage, global food shortage. 2020 is not going to look good. Then we have the pandemic. Here's the thing, though. Here's what links it all together. It's all natural. It's just simply natural. It's a cycle. It's not biblical, even though it seems like it, because human beings have very short memories. Humanity has a very short memory. We forget very easily the bad things that's happened in our past. We call them myth. But you see, anytime the earth goes through what is called a grand solar minimum, that is to say, when the sun's activity is at its peak minimum, it means it's not as hot as, it's still fucking hot, obviously, but it's not as hot, it's not as active with its sunburst and its coronal mass ejections. And so therefore, the earth cools, and it drastically changes our weather, causes many ice ages. And when the weather changes, when the polar vortex gets pushed out of there, you have out of the north, and it gets just displaced because of all these cosmic radiation that's coming in. It's just, it's funky how much the sun influences the earth. It changes our weather. Climate change happens naturally, and it happens rather quickly. And it floods, and it becomes, too cold in areas that used to be croplands. And then it allows locusts to be born. It allows locusts to exist. They thrive. There's another plague, mice. Mice is a plague right now. They're everywhere. It allows mice to breed. Every time we have a grand solar minimum, we have a pandemic, a virus breakout. It allows viruses to breed. Now, this happens every time we have a grand solar minimum. What changes is how big humanity is and the level of sophistication they are at when this thing occurs. The last time we had a grand solar minimum was in the 1700s. If you look deep enough, you can read about it. Even our own forefathers talked about the horrible weather and how the crops were failing and how there would be famine. It happened during a grand solar minimum. So it's natural. Here's the bad news, is it's all of this happening at once is bad for humanity because none of it coincides with how we live life. Every one of it is detrimental. Any one of them can wipe us out. And we have all of these different amalgamations of black swans falling out of the sky. Which brings me to the point of this video. Is bread and circus. Now what is bread and circus? What does that mean when I say bread and circus? In order for you to control and contain a volatile population of people, you must provide them with two very vital ingredients. You must provide them with bread and you must provide them with circus. And that means that you must be able to feed them and provide them entertainment, distractions, divisions. You must be able to divert the fact that they're living in poverty. You must be able to divert the fact that they're being robbed. Because if you don't, they can rise up. They always outnumber you. They always have and they always will. The few will always be outnumbered by the many. So bread and circus. You take away one of those two, and society will break down. It always has, and it always will. So now that I've told you that, think on that for a second. What have we lost already? We've lost our circus. We've lost our ability to go out and express ourselves through dance, through music. We've lost the ability of escapism, where you're going through there and you think that you're an NBA player, or you think that you're a football player, or you just really want your team to win. That's gone. The circus part of that equation is now gone. And obviously you know what comes next. Look online. Go to your Walmart. They're empty. Shelves bare. And this was the pre-panic. As of this recording, the panic buying hasn't started yet. It starts this week. And you better absolutely believe that the bread part of that equation will be taken away. Now, what happens when you take away bread and circus from a population that is experiencing harsh economic times, food shortages, pandemic, mixed with anxiety and fear and an incompetent government? I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. And here's why. Because the virus doesn't care. It doesn't. It doesn't care who you voted for. It doesn't care if you think Bernie is a socialist. It doesn't care if you think Donald Trump is a racist. It doesn't care. It doesn't care about your religion. It doesn't care about your color. It doesn't care where you were born. It doesn't care who your best friend is. It doesn't care what God you pray to at night. It doesn't. And yet, the bread and circus, the whole shebang is coming to an end very quickly. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of the world as you know it. I could be wrong. And again, that's the secret. Hope that I am. But I don't think so. I would rather be wrong. And I'm fine if I will be. I don't have a reputation to make. I'm not staking my name. I don't have a name. I'm a nobody. So who cares? Be aware that this is about to get ugly. It will be far worse in the next coming weeks than you can ever imagine. And, I made this video and I'm speaking in this particular tone and it's less philosophical because I figured there might not be an opportunity for me to continue making videos. And I don't do them for money or anything like that. I guess more than anything else, I like hearing myself talk. Don't we all, though? In our own secret way. especially when you think you're smart or something, you've studied for a test or presentation, and there's this one point that you've been studying and you've been practicing in the mirror that you can't tell me you've never done that, right? But in all seriousness, I'm just a simple philosopher who has a history with many jobs and many professions and many things. I've done so many different things, and it has allowed me to develop a skill set and a mindset that recognizes this as absolutely dangerous, and civilian complacency absolutely was the reason that this broke out. So take care, be safe, and stick it out, guys. Like I said, it's not the end of the world. Do not lose your humanity.